Well, hello everybody, Bug Eater 64 here, and as you can see, we're going to do a flight in this CH47-D. Now, those of you that remember my first attempt at flying the CH47, the flight went well. The landing did not. We ended up in a vortex ring state situation that I did not have the altitude or did not pick up on quickly enough, and thus the flight ended in tragedy. So, today, still learning how to fly this bird, we're going to get ready and do a short flight. Going to fly from San Francisco International, which is our home base, and going to fly over to Half Moon Bay again. This time in the CH47-D, and see if we can land this thing without getting into a VRS or ring state situation, and to land it without crashing. So that is our effort today, and we're going to get in the cockpit here and get going very soon. So thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoy the flight, and it's time to have fun. So let's do some flying. See you inside. Okay, so we're inside the cockpit. Let's get this bird ready to fly. So we'll go through our down and dirty checklist and get things started here very quickly as we plan to fly over to Half Moon Bay. So we're parked at basically our home base, which is right at the old Coast Guard hangar at San Francisco International Airport. So battery is on. Let's get the APU started. And it's starting up the way it's supposed to. And now that we've got power to the aircraft, we can go ahead and do some housekeeping before we start the engines, and we'll get those started here really soon. It's a beautiful day for flying, nice and sunny. In the morning here. All right, let's get these engines going. We got the left engine at ground idle. Starting up well. And once it's set there, we'll go ahead and get the right engine number 2, to ground idle. And with that, we can finish up our housekeeping and get the engines up to flight power. Okay, everything's looking really good. Shut down the APU because we don't need it anymore. Plus, it's so noisy. And we are flying in X-Plane 11.55. Set her for takeoff trim. Just about ready to go. Okay. Check our anti-torque. It's working. Cyclic is free and clear, so the controls are all good. You can add a little bit of collective so we can start edging forward. CH47-D is really nice to taxi once you learn the ins and outs. You actually have to turn on, switch on the equivalent to nose steering, the big knob at the back of the lower panel, and then you can use the anti-torque pedals to actually steer on the ground. It works really well. One of the problems I have here, where they park this aircraft, it's on a hill, so I've got to be very careful. And you'll see when I lift that it's always a little bit touchy. It likes to slide down that hill once I take the weight off and actually add collective. So here we go. See how it wants to slide once that gets a little bit of lift. So I should probably get in the habit of just taxiing around the side of this hangar. But we'll just go over the top of it today. Put the nose down and gain some speed, and let's get going while we gain speed and altitude. We don't need a lot of altitude, but we need enough to get over these hills as we head towards the ocean. The CH47, a lot of fun to fly. She's very stable. You get her trimmed properly, and like with this, I'm hand flying it the whole time and not using the autopilot at all. Now, since my first flight, which was my disastrous flight, I built in some curves into my Thrustmaster Warthog HOTAS, which I use for flying, and this is a good way to test it. I feels like it may be still, the collective may be a little sensitive still, and that's where I ran into problems last time. Coming in for a landing, and I just wasn't paying enough attention. We'll be able to test that on landing this time, and we'll see how it goes. The scenery you're looking at is Mr. X scenery, and Mr. X does a fantastic job on his work on airports and scenery and so on. So we are on approach to Half Moon Bay, and it appears, yeah, the collective is still a little bit sensitive, so I hardly move it, and it wants instead of being able to lessen in very, very small increments, sometimes it wants to just jump. I'll go from, level flight to 500-foot descent in basically just breathing on the collective. So gonna have to still do some work. And right now we're at about 500 or 250 feet. And now up to 500. In a bit of a hurry, wanting to get nose down instead of just taking my time. So we'll get down here, we'll pull up, and still trying to keep the, that didn't work quite the way I wanted it to. So, but we'll slow her down. Ease the collective down. So far, so good. Whoops. We just hit VRS. Alright, nose forward. Gain that forward speed. We're out of VRS. I'm back in control. Now watch what I'm doing with the collective. Now that was unplanned, but interesting. But it shows how easy, if you're paying attention, you can get out of a vortex ring state relatively easily. And this big girl, just the best way for me personally is just to put the nose forward, regain some airspeed, and then work with the collective a little bit. So right now we're doing fine. We're at about 150, 250 feet per minute descent. I'm going to back up, get a little bit down the runway, and then ease it forward, because I want to touch down just slightly moving forward. Nice soft rolling touchdown. So we'll keep working the collective. It is still too sensitive. Other helicopters with the setup, I'm able to get very fine tuning with the collective. Although it's not always easy to see with some of my landings. Okay, nice touchdown. And we can just keep rolling it forward. And basically from here, we just go down here, turn off onto the taxiway, and head for our parking area in front of the Half Moon Bay restaurant. All in all, good training flight. Learning things as we go. About this very fine modeling of a very good aircraft. Which in the real world I have spent time in, I've parachuted out of them and rode them into LZs and so on, and it's just, I think it's a great helicopter. She's definitely not the newest or most up to date, but she's still going. She does what she was designed for. Lit for the U.S. military. Well, I've learned a few things and learned that I had to work on a few things, especially on my approaches and using the collective work with the way it senses it in this particular simulation. So the future looks bright. And we'll be doing a flight for our airline simulator, so that's why training is so important. But this landing was rated as great, so I can't complain with that. It was a soft touchdown, but it was less than 100 feet per second. So always happy with that in a helicopter. Actually, I'm happy with any aircraft, but helicopters sometimes get a little tricky. So let's get ready to shut her down and conclude our flight. I'm glad to have you along with me. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun for me, and we hope that we can make it fun for you all too, and maybe even educational in some way. uh, we got her cooling down, and we'll shut her down here in just a second. There you go. Engines off. We'll shut the fuel off and call it a day. Alrighty then. Well, we did the flight. It went fairly well. We did get into a vortex ring state situation, but this time I picked up on it as soon as it was starting, and we were able to save the aircraft. Vortex ring state is normally very easy or relatively easy to get out of and save the aircraft, usually by just changing your pitch or, going left, right, up, or, forward or backwards. This big helicopter, it really worked best for me, pushing the stick forward, getting that forward speed again, and thus being able to get out of the vortex ring state. So with that, we got it done, and a good training flight went very well. I'm very happy with it, and so I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming along for the ride, and as always, this is Bug Eater 64, and please remember, safe flying.